smoothed his whiskers with one broad hand. For a moment, Daniel thought he might deny it, but then the man gave a slow nod. "Haven't heard that name in years," he said, voice low and gravelly. "Yes, I taught art. Long time ago." The world seemed to narrow. Daniel remembered him younger, clean-shaven, leaning over easels with quiet encouragement. Back then, he had been Daniel's favorite teacher. And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared in their lives, he'd vanished halfway through Daniel's GCSE years. No goodbye, no explanation, only replaced by a bitter, strict woman who drained the joy from every lesson. Oliver frowned. "You taught at St. Mary's, didn't you? You left just like that." Halden's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Life takes you places," he said simply. The woman beside him gave a little laugh, calling herself Tesco, as if the name itself were a joke. None of the boys laughed with her. For a moment, silence held the clearing, heavy and unnatural. Daniel's skin prickled. The recognition that should have felt comforting instead unsettled him deeply. What were the odds? What were the chances that of all the people in England, they would run into this man here, in their secret patch of wilderness? It felt less like coincidence and more like fate, and not the good kind. At first, it seemed harmless enough. The boys helped the couple finish staking down their tent, sharing a few awkward laughs as the woman Tesco, as she insisted, made jokes about their sloppy knots. They even sat together for lunch, passing around sandwiches and crisps. But Daniel noticed something strange. The couple never unpacked any food of their own. No cooler, no grocery bags, nothing but a few battered rucksacks and a handful of carrier bags from some supermarket. Later, while the others napped in the sun, Daniel caught Tesco watching them. She sat cross-legged at the edge of the clearing, her thin arms folded around her knees, glasses magnifying her eyes until they looked cartoonishly large. She smiled when she noticed him looking, but it wasn't the kind of smile that eased tension. It was too wide, too fixed. That evening, they invited the couple back to their fire. Brody had his little stereo crackling with music, and Marcus was frying steaks over the flames. The smell of fat hitting the pan filled the air, and laughter flowed easier with every swig of beer. For a moment, Daniel almost forgot the unease. Almost. Mr. Halden, he refused to let them call him anything else, was in his element. He told stories about traveling Europe in the 60s, about living in communes, about nights spent painting under starlight and mornings waking in jail cells. The others leaned in, hanging on his every word, enchanted by the nostalgia of a life they'd never known. But Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. For all the talk, Halden never drank from the cans they offered him, never touched the meat sizzling on the pan. His eyes never softened, never really laughed. He was performing, Daniel realized, performing just for them. And then, as the fire burned low and the shadows grew long, Halden reached into the pocket of his jacket. One by one, he laid things on the ground. First, a handful of rolling papers and a bag of skunky-smelling weed. Then a strip of acid tabs, the perforated paper curling at the edges. A bag of pills, bright colors glinting in the firelight like candy. And finally, a clear pouch stuffed with dried mushrooms, brown, twisted, and unmistakably psychedelic. The clearing went quiet. Marcus let out a low whistle. "Bloody hell," he muttered. Theo chuckled nervously. "You've kept busy." But Halden wasn't joking. His eyes locked on Daniel, sharp and unblinking. "This," he said, his voice low, almost reverent, "is freedom, real freedom. Not books, not grades, not your little degrees. This is truth." He pinched one of the acid tabs between his fingers and held it out. "Go on, Daniel, you're an artist. You'll see the world differently after this." Daniel shook his head, heart thudding. "No, thanks." Then try a pill, Halden pressed, his tone lighter but his eyes harder. No strings attached. You'll love it. Daniel's refusal only seemed to fuel him. He leaned closer, the firelight carving strange shadows into the grooves of his face. You think you're free, he murmured, but you're not. Take this and you'll understand. Beside him, Marcus tried to laugh it off, reaching for the joint instead. I'll have a hit, he said, half to break the tension. Halden hesitated before passing it, almost grudgingly, as though every scrap of smoke were too valuable to waste. But when it came to Daniel, he would not relent. First a tab, then a pill, then the mushrooms. Tesco hovered behind, giggling softly, already boiling water in their kettle, tossing a handful of shriveled fungi into the pot. The bitter scent of mushroom tea crept into the night air, mixing with the smell of grease and smoke. Daniel's stomach tightened. He asked if they were safe, if they even knew what kind of mushrooms they were. Halden waved the question aside with a flick of his hand. I guess so, he said. Don't be a coward. The words cut sharper than they should have. Daniel's mouth was dry, his chest tight. He could feel the others watching, waiting to see what he'd do. And in that moment, with the fire dying low and the fog creeping in around their little circle, he realized something chilling. This wasn't about sharing. It was about control. The joint made its way around the circle. By the time it reached Marcus, he was already grinning, shoulders loose, the firelight catching in his eyes. Come on, Danny, he teased, holding it out between two fingers. Don't be such a saint. Daniel shook his head, but Marcus pressed. Just one drag, live a little. He'd already taken 2 long pulls himself, his words slurring slightly. The smoke curled from his lips as he shoved it toward Daniel's hand. Daniel hesitated. He could feel Halden's stare burning into him, sharp and eager. Tesco giggled behind them, the kettle now steaming with its foul brew. The air reeked of earth and bitterness, the smell of those mushrooms seeping into everything. Against his better judgment, Daniel took the joint. The first inhale scorched his lungs, the smoke thick and cloying, different from anything he'd ever tried before. Within moments, his chest tightened, his head swam. The world tilted. Marcus laughed and clapped him on the shoulder. That's it, lad, now you're with us. But Daniel knew something was wrong. This wasn't just weed. His vision blurred at the edges, colors smearing into strange halos. The trees seemed to lean closer, branches twitching like skeletal fingers. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. Halden leaned in, his beard catching the glow of the fire, his voice a low murmur. Better, isn't it? You feel it. That freedom, let it wash over you. Daniel tried to speak, but the words tangled on his tongue. He felt heavy, unmoored, his body betraying him. His stomach rolled, heat rising into his throat. Tesco's thin hand appeared at his shoulder, her nails digging lightly into his skin as she pressed a steaming mug into his palms. Drink, she said, her grin stretched too wide. It'll smooth everything out, no more fear. Daniel pretended to lift the cup, lips closed against the rim, smacking them together as though he'd swallowed. The taste of the steam alone made his stomach twist. He set it down when her eyes darted away. But the damage was done. His mind began to fracture. At the edge of the clearing, Marcus was stumbling, laughing at things no one else could see. Little gnomes, he shouted, swatting at the air. Look at them, Danny, tiny gnomes running circles round the fire. Thea was slumped over, barely conscious, and Brody had vanished into his tent without a word. Daniel realized he was the only one left fighting to stay grounded. Halden's voice coiled around him, soft and sinister. You've been caged your whole life, Daniel. Parents, teachers, rules. But here you're free. His hand landed heavy on Daniel's shoulder, fingers squeezing too hard, too intimate. All it takes is a choice, just let go. Tesco moved closer, her laugh a high-pitched trill that made his skin crawl. She rubbed his back with a